wall between us. In 1989, the Berlin Wall, a 155-kilometer barrier built in 1961 to divide East and West Berlin, could no longer hold back the tide of change. East Germany's communist government, the German Democratic Republic, GDR, faced mounting pressure from mass protests in Leipzig and Dresden, inspired by Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev's reforms of glasnost and perestroika. With an economy crumbling under 20 billion marks in debt and 2,000 citizens fleeing daily through Hungary's open borders, the GDR's leaders, led by Erich Honecker's successors, made a stunning decision. On November 9th, during a chaotic press conference, official Günter Schabowski announced that travel restrictions to the West were lifted immediately, effectively opening the wall. This unplanned declaration, driven by public demand and geopolitical shifts, set the stage for Germany's unification. West Berlin, November 9th, 1989. Lena stood on the crowded Kurfürstendamm, West Berlin's lively shopping street, pulling her scarf tight against the November chill. Neon lights from department stores glowed, a sharp contrast to the gray concrete of the Berlin Wall a few miles away. At 22, Lena had grown up with that wall, a Cold War symbol splitting families and dreams. Her older brother Marcus had been trapped on the other side since she was a baby. She barely remembered his face, only the letters he smuggled out, describing life under the watchful eyes of the Stasi, East Germany's secret police. Tonight, the air buzzed with change. Radios blared from passing cars and crowds gathered around shop windows showing news broadcasts. Lena overheard a man shout,
"They're opening the wall!"
Her heart raced. Could it be true? People were rushing to checkpoints like Bornholmerstrasse, spurred by Schabowski's words. Lena grabbed her coat and ran toward the wall, her boots pounding the pavement. The wall, topped with barbed wire and guarded by towers, had been a fact of life since the Soviet-backed GDR built it to stop East Germans from fleeing to the capitalist West. By 1989, over 100,000 East Germans had tried to escape, and at least 140 had died at the wall, shot by guards or caught in no man's land. Lena's mother had shared stories of those desperate attempts, including Marcus's failed try in 1975, which landed him in a Stasi prison for a year. At the Invalidenstrasse checkpoint, Lena joined a growing crowd. West Berliners cheered, holding signs saying, "Freiheit," freedom. She scanned the faces on the other side, visible through gaps as guards hesitated, unsure whether to open the gates. Her brother's last letter, sent 6 months ago, said he worked in a factory in East Berlin. Could he be here? Lena's breath caught as she imagined seeing him after 20 years. The crowd surged forward when the gates creaked open, and East Berliners, strangers until now, poured through, laughing, crying, hugging. Lena pushed through, shouting,
"Marcus, Marcus!"
A man with tired eyes and a familiar jawline turned. Could it be him? Her heart pounded as history unfolded around her, the wall crumbling not just in concrete but in spirit. East Berlin, November 9th, 1989. Across the city, in a cramped apartment on Prenzlauer Berg, Marcus sat by a flickering lamp, listening to his illegal West German radio. At 34, he felt older than his years. Life in East Berlin under the GDR was grim. Food shortages, endless queues, and the constant fear of the Stasi. They had files on everyone, including Marcus, branded a dissident after his failed escape attempt. The Stasi, with over 91,000 agents and 173,000 informants by 1989, watched every move. Marcus had learned to keep quiet, working long shifts at a state-owned factory making Trabant cars, the rattling symbol of East German life. Tonight, the radio crackled with Schabowski's announcement. East Germans could travel to the West immediately, without delay. Marcus froze. Was this a trick? The GDR had tightened its grip after protests in Leipzig and Dresden, where thousands demanded reforms. Yet the economic collapse and open borders in Hungary and Czechoslovakia had forced the government's hand. Marcus grabbed his coat and ran to the Bornholmerstrasse checkpoint, joining a swelling crowd. People chanted, "We want out!" Guards, usually stern, looked confused. The wall, built when Marcus was 6, had seemed eternal. It stretched 3.6 meters high, with 302 watchtowers and a death strip of mines and traps. Now it felt fragile. Marcus's hands shook as he pushed closer to the gate, remembering his 1975 attempt, when he'd been caught in barbed wire, beaten, and jailed. As the gates opened, Marcus hesitated. Freedom was steps away, but so was fear. What if the guards changed their minds? He thought of Lena, his little sister in West Berlin. He'd written her letters, smuggled through friends, never sure if they reached her. The last one described his dream of seeing her again. Now, as East and West Berliners mingled, Marcus stepped forward, heart racing. He crossed into West Berlin, the bright lights dazzling after years of dim streets. A young woman shouted his name, Lena. Her face, so like their mother's, broke into a smile. They collided in a hug, tears mixing with laughter. Around them, strangers danced atop the wall, chipping away pieces as souvenirs. The night felt like a miracle, the start of something new. The crossroads of history, the days that followed were chaos and joy. On November 10th, more checkpoints opened, and by December, over 2 million East Germans had visited the West, many staying for good. Lena and Marcus spent hours catching up in a West Berlin cafe, sharing stories of their divided lives. Marcus marveled at the abundance in shops, while Lena learned about his struggles under the GDR's failing economy, where a loaf of bread could cost hours in line. Historical forces had collided to make this moment possible. The Cold War, dividing the world since 1945, was thawing. In 1987, U.S. President Ronald Reagan had stood at the Brandenburg Gate demanding,
"Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall."
By 1989, Gorbachev's reforms weakened Soviet control over Eastern Europe. Hungary and Czechoslovakia's open borders created a domino effect. East Germany, losing 2,000 citizens a day, could no longer resist. For Lena, reunification meant family. She took Marcus to see their mother's old apartment in Charlottenburg, now a vibrant West Berlin neighborhood. For Marcus, it meant freedom, but also uncertainty. East Germany's economy collapsed further after the wall fell, with 1.5 million jobs lost by 1991. He wondered if he could start over in the West, where opportunities sparkled, but competition was fierce. On New Year's Eve, 1989, Lena and Marcus climbed onto a section of the wall near the Brandenburg Gate, joining thousands celebrating. Fireworks lit the sky, and the crowd sang Germany's song, the national anthem. The wall, once a symbol of division, was now a stage for unity. By October 3, 1990, Germany would officially reunify, merging East and West into one nation after 41 years apart. The process wasn't easy. Economic disparities and cultural differences lingered, but that night, hope outshone doubt. Lena squeezed Marcus's hand.
"We're together now,"
she said. Marcus nodded, staring at the city, no longer split in two. The wall was falling, and with it, the barriers between their lives. History had brought them to this crossroads, and they stepped into the future, side by side. Barrier, a wall or obstacle that blocks movement. The fence was a barrier between the 2 yards, crumbling, falling apart into small pieces. The old house was crumbling after years of rain. Dissident, someone who disagrees with the government. The dissident spoke out against unfair laws. Economy, the system of money and trade in a country. The economy grew with new shops and jobs. Geopolitical, about politics between countries. Geopolitical changes affected the whole world. Glasnost, a Soviet policy of being open about government actions. Glasnost, let people talk freely about problems. Perestroika, a Soviet policy to improve the economy. Perestroika tried to fix broken businesses. Reunification, joining separated parts into one. The reunification brought the family together.